Okay, so today, May 18th, we got our first look at Destiny 2 gameplay, and when it comes to anything Destiny, I like to consider myself a pretty good authority on the subject. I've been playing since the alpha back in, 2014. I've clocked in over 1,000 hours into the game. I've suffered through the low points and enjoyed a few of the high points as well. So if you watch my channel at all, you'll know that I play, or try to play, every game on PC, and of course, Destiny 1 was not on PC, but Destiny 2 is on PC. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to cover every small bit of information that was in this video, because there's a lot of small things lurking in the shots that I can't cover at all. But I do want to cover as much of the PC stuff as possible, because that's what I'm most excited about, and I think that's probably going to get the least attention, since most of the people into Destiny are predominantly console players. So I read somewhere that the gameplay from this small, media press conference event was captured on a 1080 Ti. It was actually PC gameplay. I'm not sure if that's a legitimate claim, but I read it on PC Gamer or something like that. And they were going pretty hardcore talking about PC stuff there, and there were a few bits of literature that people that were physically at the event shared online on Twitter. We can see here some actual physical literature on the control scheme for Destiny 2, which is not set in stone because, as you can see in this next shot, full mouse and keyboard support with custom key mapping, which is fantastic because I'm not sure how much I like the default key mappings shown there. Now, there's also a lot of other information in here that is indicative of a good PC port. You've got support for resolutions up to 4K, you've got an uncapped frame rate, you've got text chat, which of course you have text chat. I don't even know why that's really not a feature. I guess that's kind of a stupid detail. Adjustable field of view, which is fantastic. Detailed PC settings screen. And most interestingly, 21:9 monitor support. Personally, I play on a 21:9 monitor, so I'm really happy about this. And that's something that's not supported by a lot of games that are considered good PC games. Like, for example, Overwatch doesn't support 21:9 properly. So it's an interesting detail, and it's indicative of a very good PC port. Now, by far the most interesting bit of information is that Destiny 2 is not coming to Steam, it's not getting its own Bungie launcher, it's instead coming to Blizzard's Battle.net. At first glance, I thought this was very, very odd, because Activision puts the Call of Duty games, for example, onto Steam. They have no qualms about doing it before, so why do they have qualms about putting Destiny on there? But I think this actually ends up being somewhat of a stroke of genius. Now, bear with me here. When you play Destiny on console, which is something that PC players might not be used to, I don't think a lot of PC people who are hardcore into PC have experienced too much Destiny, but when you play on console and you get a group for a raid and you're playing with randoms, you're doing like an LFG type thing, you kind of organize your party by going into the PlayStation party chat or the Xbox party chat, and then from there you can kind of filter people out, and you don't have to add them as friends. You can just add them to the party, and they can join your in-game lobby from the party. Now, this is something that would be really awkward to do on Steam, because if you're on Steam, you don't really have a functionality like that would allow you to directly root into the game and add people to your party without adding them as a friend first. And I guess you could use the in-game chat, but that's shit in the original Destiny, so I don't think it'll be good here. So Blizzard's Battle.net does have a functionality that functions almost identically to an Xbox or PlayStation party chat, where you can add people to a voice chat party lobby, and then you can join their in-game games. So this might actually secretly be a really genius decision on Bungie and Activision's part. And that nicely segues into one of the biggest problems that Destiny 1 had, which was these activities such as Trials of Osiris and the Raid and the Nightfall, where players who were playing solo and didn't have enough friends to do those activities were kind of shit out of luck. And you'd have to go onto an LFG website, which is a third-party thing, and you wouldn't really expect just the average person to know how to do that. It's kind of unbelievable that Destiny 1 would exist like that. They put clearly in Destiny 1, all of the best content was the raids. It was the Trials of Osiris. So that content, most players weren't even getting to that content, which is kind of fucked up. Now, Bungie have not added a LFG function to the game that functions identically to the two main websites that people use. It functions a little bit differently. It's not a full-fledged LFG. Instead, it takes clan functionality, and let's say, for instance, you've got a clan of people, you've got friends together, they're in a clan, and they want to do a raid, and only 4 people are on to do the raid, or 4 or 5 people are on to do the raid. they can make a posting into this pseudo LFG thing, and people who are solo, it seemed like it was aimed towards like one or two people joining a group. So like at minimum, a clan group would have like 4 people, and then 2 randoms could join, and they could join into that clan. And the idea was that they'd get a better experience than just playing with complete randoms, and there'd be less likelihood of the group falling apart, which is definitely a true thing from personal experience. When I've got like 3 of my friends on there and we get 2 randoms, the group's not going to fall apart because I've got 4 people that I actually know well playing with me. We're not going to get butthurt and leave. So it is a good system, and it's going to be the best way for like normal people that don't want to go on these crazy LFG websites. They're not like that into the game. They just want to see what this shit's all about. They want to get a decent experience, but they're not hardcore like trying to do everything the night of a reset. It's a nice way for them to access content that they wouldn't otherwise. But I don't see why they couldn't have, in addition to this interesting mechanic, this interesting system, they could have also added a full-fledged LFG. I don't see what the harm in that would have been. So it looks like those 2 LFG websites, they're not going to be going anywhere. They'll still be necessary. And they showed in the press conference room on like a PowerPoint slide kind of what it looks like. They flash all these groups, these clans on the screen, and you can accept or decline them. But it didn't seem to have any sort of functionality where you could, I'm sure it'll show like your player's level and shit like that, but you couldn't advertise stuff like I have lots of experience doing this or that, which is a key integral feature of the LFG groups. Like I'm good with the relic, or I have a Gallarhorn, information like that, which is really crucial to selecting a group member. So like I said, I think those LFG websites are still going to be around for the foreseeable future. Then looking at the gameplay itself, let's be frank here, it does not look that different. We got a glimpse of like the first story mission where the tower's getting attacked. Now the one silver lining here, they showed like more cutscenes in this hour-long presentation than there were like in the entirety of the first Destiny game. So that's a good step up, and it did look more on par with the campaign of like a modern like Halo 5 or something like that. It was on par with what you would expect from a AAA shooter, as opposed to Destiny 1 story missions, which were just these shallow like husks and shallow scenarios with little to no interesting visual things going on at all. But the gameplay itself, it's kind of hard to tell because you are getting a lot of YouTube compression, but it didn't look wildly different from Destiny 1. There were some small graphical updates that I noticed, like the HUD is completely different, but that's superficial stuff. There were like weather effects, like I saw rain and the kind of the wetness effect on surfaces that was not in the original game, and there was also seemed to be some kind of like simulated wind, because I saw the rain kind of getting blown around in a way that I've never seen in Destiny 1. But it largely looked very similar, especially the way they were reloading guns and just the whole view. It looked like pretty much the same game, which is a little bit concerning and odd, because it's not concerning to me because, oh, I want a brand new game. It's concerning to me because the big issue with Destiny 1 in terms of development was that the engine was allegedly very hard to add new content to, which led to the content drought throughout pretty much all of Destiny 1's life cycle. If they're really using the exact same engine, which I highly doubt, that's like just shooting yourself in the foot or putting a stick through the spoke of your own tire. I don't know why they would do that, but it remains to be seen if it's the same engine. It certainly looks very similar. Perhaps they could have taken the original engine and made changes to it, but it seemed like those problems with the original engine were so deep-rooted that you just have to scrap it and start over, so I have no clue what's going on there. But story missions look a lot better. They're a step up from even the story missions in the Taken King, which those were the best story missions, and they still were, I would say, they were barely up to par of what you would expect from a single-player shooter. These are very much, I would say it's comparable to like some Halo 5 missions. Let's say that's the benchmark for these. The Warlock has a new super where he pulls out a fire sword in lieu of the old skill from the first game. I forget what it was called. It was called like Ascendance or something like that. It made your grenades cool down faster. It was the one that had a multiplier, or not a multiplier, a setting where you could come back from the dead. That one, it was called Ascendance or something like that, the solar fire ability. That was kind of lame, so it definitely needs to be replaced. Then the Hunter kind of gets the short end of the stick here. He pulls out like a baton. It seems functionally very similar to Blade Dancer. I'm not sure what the difference is. I'm not sure what all of these supers are really about. It's kind of odd. Are they ditching like Gunslinger and Defender Titans. Is that like, or not Gunslinger, Blade Dancer and Defender Titans? Because I could see for the Titan, well, for the Hunter and the Warlock, they could those original elemental supers from the first game. These you could say are like beefed up versions of those two. But for the Titan, the functionality of having like a Captain America shield that he throws around is completely different than the previous Void class, the Defender class, where he spawns like a bubble. So I'm not sure what that's about, especially since in the cinematic cutscenes you had the Titan Vanguard and Cade 6, the Hunter Vanguard. You had them using like Golden Gun and the Defender Titan bubble. So I don't know what's up with that either. Are these like new subclasses? I don't know. The real big change here, and the thing that desperately needed to be changed in Destiny, what were the patrols and the exploration, which is something that they promised so heavily for Destiny 1, and then in the real game, in actuality, it's the most boring, lame fucking thing. It's not even entertaining for 10 minutes. It's just dog shit. In this one, we get 4 new areas. 3 of them are like, I don't think they're planets. They're like moons of other planets. They look pretty good. And then one of the new areas is Earth. It's the European Dead Zone, which the one part of it looked very similar to that map from House of Wolves that was called like King's Court or something like that. Widow's Court, I believe, was the name of that. It looks very similar. There was a guy up in the church tower, and he gives you what's called adventures. So you find one person who's kind of like the legend of this area, and they'll give you like adventure quests. I'm not sure what that's gonna be like. I think that's gonna maybe slot in to the kind of thing where in an MMO, as you level up, you find a new base or new small town that kind of becomes your home for a while as you do various missions there and beef up the settlements and shit like that. So that could be what that is. Then they had these 2 concepts. One of them was like unknown areas, which is, I guess, exploring and finding new areas. I don't see what else that could be. And then another one of them, I forget what the name was, but it sounded a lot like dungeons. I specifically remember him saying, like, you go there and fight a boss and you get a key for a chest or something like that. It sounds like dungeons. And they showed a map, which I'm going to show in the video, and it showed like a lot of these activities around the map. So it looks like it'll keep you engaged. Now, for how long? I don't know, because once you do something like that, it's done forever. Now, one thing I noticed immediately when they were playing the game, and that they mentioned a little bit, but in a very convoluted manner, was the weapons that you can have equipped. So it looks like you have like a power weapon and then 2 primary weapons, it looks like. But I noticed that, so one slot they said was always a kinetic weapon, and then the second one, they didn't say it always was kinetic, they just said it was like kind of like another primary weapon. But I noticed in the gameplay, the guy had like a pulse rifle that was doing void damage, and then another guy had like an assault rifle doing fire damage. So I'm not sure, so I guess exotic primaries are coming back, but they're in the second primary slot. It's a little bit convoluted. And then the power weapons, that makes enough sense, but there were like weapons. There was a grenade launcher, that's brand new. And then in the I guess I don't know if this was a secondary primary or a power weapon, but there was like a minigun type gun. But the thing about this power weapon slot is that anything like, so not void, fusion rifles, shotguns, and then stuff like grenade launchers and rocket launchers all fit into that slot. But in Destiny 1, like, the power disparity between a shotgun and a rocket launcher is fucking huge. So I guess those like fusion rifles and shotguns are going to be a lot more powerful in Destiny 2 than they were in Destiny 1, or else I don't know how they can even compete with guns like a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher. And then they kind of cheekily hid the dubious volley in that trailer. I noticed a lot of people in the crowd noticed that. They were excited about that. The dubious volley is an exotic heavy weapon that was like lurking within the database files for Destiny 1 since the Taken King, and now that's finally in the game. So what does that say though? Does that say that this is like the same engine with some tweaks? Again, it's very odd and confusing on that end. Overall, I'm really optimistic for the game. It looks like they've listened to a lot of changes, but I still don't know if there's enough content here. We've only got 4 areas, right? And even if they are filled with a lot of stuff, that's still only 4 areas. And there's no fucking way that those areas are like, they'd have to be like more than twice the size of Destiny 1 areas for them to be like really impressive, because Destiny 1 areas were small and they had nothing in them. These at least have stuff in them, but you're gonna like run out of stuff to do quick. There's only one raid when the game comes out, and then they're going back to the 2 expansion pack formula from the from 2014 from Destiny 1, where Destiny 1 had 2 expansions in the first year, and then they ditched that, but now they're coming back to it. There's just little things here that they don't have me necessarily concerned. Like, I'm still going to enjoy the game just as much, especially playing it on PC. And by the way, they claim that the PC game doesn't have a specific release date. It's not set for September 8th like the 2 console versions are. Now, I assume that they'll get their act together and put out the game day and date with the console versions, because if they don't, that would kind of really fuck up the equilibrium of a game that lives on a weekly reset cycle. So PC players would like permanently kind of be behind. It'd be very weird. I'm sure more information will come out in the future. The beta's coming out later this summer. They say that everyone will get a chance to play, so I assume that means a PC version will come out. If not, I can just play it on console as well. Also, I was floating around the idea of making a 3-part like video series kind of thing, where I would go back and examine each year of Destiny, year 1, year 2, year 3, Vanilla, Taken King, and then Rise of Iron, and kind of talk about my experience with them and what I learned from that time playing, how the game has changed, and what I think Destiny 2 should do. And I was thinking that I could get this out over the summer before Destiny 2 comes out. If you think that's interesting, let me know down below, and thank you for watching.